Table for One, Episode 10. This week, I'm looking at a couple of hot 2016 releases. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about solo gaming during the holiday season. Here we go. Yo, everybody. Welcome back to Table for One. This is Episode 10. I'm your substitute host, Jason. And this week, we are talking about a couple of new titles that have gotten a bit of buzz in 2016. The Pursuit of Happiness and Vast, the Crystal Cavern. After that, I'm going to share some tips and tricks on how an introverted person can get through the holiday season. Hint, it involves solo games. So, it's just me this time. This is a true Table for One. Anthony, unfortunately, has the flu. Yes, him and his kids are a little bit under the weather. You know how it goes. Anybody who has kids, one kid gets sick, parent gets sick, wife gets sick, kid gets sick again. Oh my God. So Anthony's kind of in the middle of that cycle. So we're all pulling for him to get better and get back on the horse next week. So Anthony, we miss you. We'll see you next week, buddy. In the meantime, I have an iPhone. So I'm just going to step in and do a little bit of recording and, put something out. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. So before I begin, a couple of apologies. One, I am on a phone, so I hope that there is no awkward audio quality. That'd be nice. And the second is I'm not a professional podcaster. People have listened to the first couple episodes. Those are my first 2 episodes podcasting ever. So if this is a little bit rambly or, some other things that I can kind of think of, bear with me, guys. I plan on doing this for a little while. I'm having a lot of fun. So if you could bear with me and, I hope you guys really enjoy the episode. So that's it. No more apologies. On to the games. So the first game that I'm going to talk about is The Pursuit of Happiness. The Pursuit of Happiness was designed by Adrian Abella and David Cherkop. It was published by Artipia Games and Stronghold Games. This game's a 2015 release, but Artipia kickstarted a second edition in 2016, which is the one that I think people really know and are really playing. The second edition had better components, a tweaked rule set, and some other small changes that really, really improved the game. So I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast know a bit about this, but on the off chance you don't, or maybe you don't know it's a soloable game, this is the game of life, the Euro game. So it has that same kind of feeling of going through the board, and you're starting as a young person, and the game of life you start in college. Here you actually start as a quote-unquote teenager, and then you go through your whole life. You go from childhood, you go through adulthood, you go through old age, and at the end of the game, you die. It's pretty depressing knowing that you die at the end of the game, but, there you go. But it's a Euro game, and it's a lot like a lot of the Euro games that you've played. You have pieces, I guess they're like workers. Put the workers on spots in the board. The spots in the board is resources. You spend those resources to get more resources, or you get points. A certain part of the game, you try to emphasize getting more points than the other person, and then at the end of the game, most points wins. Boom! Have I described almost every Euro game that you've ever played? Yes. So it has that at its core, this worker placement Euro game. But what sets the game apart is its theme. Like I said, it goes through a person's life. The quote-unquote workers in this game are time markers, and you're spending time. And to show that you're spending time, the markers are shaped these really cute little hourglass that they really get a kick out of them. So just to give you a sense of how the game plays, I'm not going to explain the whole thing, just enough to give you a visual of what you're going to be doing. So you get 6 pieces per turn, for the most part. You might get more or less, depending on what happens. And you can either use them to directly get your resources, which is, in the game, money, knowledge, creativity, or social influence. So you can either get those resources directly, or you can improve your life in some way. And that's represented by cards. And cards depict a whole bunch of stuff. They can depict life projects, like working out, learning how to cook. You can buy stuff that makes you happy, TV, video games, or pets, if you get the mini expansion, which I definitely recommend, especially for that pets part, if you're a cat person or whatever it is. You can go on activities. You can go roller skating. You can go skydiving. You can go motorboating. Do all sorts of fun stuff there. Eventually, you'll be able to go on dates, get married, get jobs, get promoted, do like real life stuff. All that stuff is represented on cards. Really, underneath all that, all of these things, the projects, the jobs and everything, they're really just different ways to kind of move around your resources and getting more. You spend knowledge and influence to gain money. You spend money to get knowledge and influence, and it just kind of like loops, throughout the entire game. And the point of the game is to use all those ways to kind of obtain, spend, and leverage the resources to turn them into long-term happiness in the most efficient way possible. And whoever can do that the most efficiently is the winner. For the solo mode, you play the game as normal. The goal is to attain 3 life goals while scoring 50 points. Pretty simple, right? So life goals, didn't really explain that in the multiplayer part, but they're just kind of this way of scoring extra points. They give them like achievements that you can get along the way. But they become the kind of the heart of the solo mode. They really drive it. So life goals are like, I mentioned about life projects. A life goal might be complete 3 life projects. Get 5 activities. Make sure you do 3 of those things before you end up dying and score 50 points along the way. 50 points being 50 long-term happiness points. It changes the way you play. So if you have to get 5 activities, you better get a lot of money so that you can afford those activities. Or if you want to do some projects, you got to get some more hourglasses, find a way to get more ways to just, you need time to do these projects more than you need like money or particular resources. So really, so every game is a little bit different depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So that's basically it. That's the solo version of the Pursuit of Happiness. I know this was really quick, but I just wanted to kind of hit the main points so that you get a visual of how the game plays and how the solo mode works. I like this game a lot. Me personally, I don't play a ton of Euro games. I'll leave that to Anthony. But this one really, really sung to me, mostly because of the theme. The theme and the weight, really. I mean, this is kind of a family weight Euro. Pretty simple. You can sit, people down and play it, people in your family, as long as they've played some kind of games that are ahead of Monopoly or Sorry. This is a really good kind of next step for them. So, like, that family weight really works for me, and like I said, the theme integration really comes through. Like, you place your mark on the board and you study. That studying lets you go to college, which would be like a life project, so that kind of really makes sense. You can, you get a lot of decisions, like, okay, oh my God, do I have to, I have all this money, but I don't have any time, or, I have 3 markers and I have 5 or 6 things I want to do with my life, which is like kind of simulating, someone who just really wants to pack their life in with a bunch of fun stuff before they move on and get older and do whatever. So, and that's really represented in some of the decisions that are made. There's a little bit of take that in the multiplayer mode, not too much, but enough to say like, okay, I'm going to go skydiving, you're not going to go skydiving kind of thing, which is, I like that a lot too. One thing to note about the gameplay is that this isn't a game of tight resources. So like some Euros, I'm thinking of Agricola in particular, really tight on resources. Is like you're there's a bunch of choices in front of you and all of them stink. and you're trying to make the least stinky choice. And you also have to you have to make the choice in order to feed your people, and you always feel like you're kind of behind. I don't enjoy those games. I enjoy the games where it's a little bit more looser with the resources. There's like a lot of good options. You're always kind of moving forward a bit, and the question isn't whether you're moving forward. It's how can you do it most efficiently. This game is definitely on that side. You're gonna have a card with 16 money, which is a lot, and a bunch of knowledge and a bunch of creativity, and then you're going to figure out what you got to do with it. So you can make, you always feel like you're doing something. So like even somebody in last place can kind of look at the board and say, okay, I tried my best and now I'm going to learn and try to do it a little bit more efficiently next time. I like that approach as opposed to the kind of Agricola starved resources kind of approach. Yeah, that's the stuff that I really like about it. Negatives, it's not the most mechanically interesting game. I gotta admit. Like I said before, it's family weight, which means you really shouldn't expect a whole lot of depth, maybe a little bit, but not like a ton. But this game might be a little bit too simple for people who really want that meat, that strategy, especially with a Euro game. So if this game had a different theme, if we were trading sheep for wool on a farm, or if we were trading rum in the Mediterranean, or whatever other kind of generic Euro theme, I don't think I'd like this game as much. I really do have to admit that. The theme obviously is the thing that carries it through. Another negative I have on that kind of tip is that some of the theme integration is a little bit wonky. There are some moments where like the theme really comes together and it's great. I'm really deciding between life choices, or I have to decide whether I want to, keep this job or keep the girl. I have to make a choice about that. That stuff's great. Sometimes though, you kind of lose it and you kind of find yourself gaming the system, despite whatever kind of makes sense theme wise. I'm thinking in particular there's a move where you could do where you can get a really, really great job that takes a lot of time and gives you a lot of money, but then you can immediately retire. And that's like, on a lot of games, that's the best move. It's like, I'm going to get this great job and I'm going to retire right away and just walk with extra money every turn or every future turn. Don't love that. I know like stockbrokers do that, but maybe, as I'm going to describe a little bit later, I'm a therapist. There's also like teachers, social service workers, we don't do that. So that was a little bit weird for me. It's like, whoa, I really need to retire out of my job immediately and get money. Maybe that's my thing. I'm a theme guy, as you guys are going to learn. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm nitpicking. And then another one, which is kind of linked to the first one, my criticism, it's a little bit easy, this game. So when I play this game, I really beat it a lot. I don't consider myself amazing at Euro games, but I beat this game a lot. The biggest challenge I get is when I use the particular life goal of dying before old age. So it basically cuts off a turn. You got to do everything you got to do, and you got to score your 50 points, but you have to do it in fewer turns, which that is actually a real challenge. And I kind of enjoy that if I really want to get my butt kicked or if I really want to test my efficiency at it. So if you don't like easy games, if you don't like casual games, family weight games, then this might not be the thing for you. But if you like theme, you like that idea of the game of life only better, this game is awesome. I mean, it's in my collection. I'm going to keep it. It's a really great game. I highly recommend it. So the next game I'm going to talk about is Vast, the Crystal Cavern. This game is by David Somerville and Patrick Leader. It was published by Leader Games, which I think is a small publisher. Is this their first game? I have to look it up, but I probably should have looked it up before. Oh well. Either way, small publisher. They had a print run pretty recently, or they did a Kickstarter earlier in the year. Then they had a print run, sold completely through the print run, and this thing is impossible to find. You can't find it. I think the print run is renewing next year, so that gives you an idea of, we're not exactly talking about Asmodee over here who could just pump out the games for you. So, like I said, this game was a Kickstarter. It was originally called Trove. It said Gen Con 2016, kind of on fire. People were really talking about this. Game was buzzed about. It was on the hot list for a while. And, for good reason, really. It's a dungeon crawl, of which there are 1 million, but the game is utterly distinct. I've never quite played a game like this. A lot of you know it. I feel kind of silly for kind of talking about it in this basic way, but I do feel like I have to cover this basic ground. There's 5 characters, and they each play completely differently. They have different goals. They have different mechanics. There's different interactions with one another, so each player is interacting with the other in a different way. It's just really the most hyper asymmetrical game that I've ever experienced. Like I was saying, everybody has a different goal. So like if you're the knight, you want to kill the dragon. If you're the dragon, you want to wake up and escape. If you're the goblins in the cave, you want to kill the knight. If you are the thief, you want to sneak around everybody, cause a little bit of trouble for everybody, but really just steal treasure and leave. Or you can be the cave itself. Yeah, you could lay out tiles, and you can try to lay them out in a way where you get people trapped and eventually just collapse the cave and everybody dies. Rocks fall, everyone dies. So the goals are different, but you can have different goals but have the players play the same way. Not in this game. This game really does have all 5 characters play in a very different way. So I'll just kind of break down the different characters, because the solo mode is basically you're taking over one of those characters. So it really is kind of important that if you're going to get the full solo experience in this game, you know what they do. So the dragon, I'll start with him or her. I don't know, do dragons have gender? I don't know. So the dragon is driven mostly by simple card play. They're cards that let the dragon move, they attack, they breathe, and power up to become awake. And being awake in mechanical terms means more cards. You can do more stuff. Eventually become fully awake, and you try to escape, and your powers change up a little bit. So in actual gameplay terms, your dragon starts pretty powerful. Like when I played my first game of this in a multiplayer, I was sitting there going, wow, this dragon's really powerful. And then everyone else kind of caught up. So, but it starts so this one starts pretty powerful and pretty simple gameplay. And then you're slowly kind of getting better. The knight, on the other hand, who I was, starts out pretty sucky. Instead of cards, the knight gets a set of actions. He can increase his actions and his options by questing. You get these little side quest cards. You can kill stuff. You can get items like boots and swords and all that kind of stuff. So as opposed to the dragon, who starts out pretty powerful and simple with this card play, the knight amps up. So then you're not doing much in your first turn, but if you kind of do your early turns the right way, you can power up and eventually become a real powerhouse. So it's like, watch out, dragon. You better get out of there before the knight really gets his stuff going. So then the goblins are even different. So both of those things, the knight and the dragon, they're kind of one thing. The goblin are three things. The goblin player controls three different tribes. And the tribe's power kind of waxes and wanes depending on what's going on in the game. So there might be a tribe with max population. They can do a lot. They can attack. They can do whatever. While another goblin is kind of laying there and maybe they got hurt and they're building up, whatever it is. So the goblin player, as opposed to this either amping up or just kind of going right at it, they're really managing. They're going back and forth with stuff, which is pretty interesting. The thief plays differently. He plays a little bit like the knight, and he has action points, but his whole approach to the game is different. He's sneaking around. He can walk in the dark. He can, kind of stab people and hinder them. So they have less actions like in the knight's case, or less cards in the dragon's case, and he's just going in, getting loot, getting out. He dies. He can die a lot, which is pretty funny. His whole thing is that he's cursed, and he as soon as he dies, he appears back at the start, and gotta go back, gotta steal more treasure. So that's pretty. So that's also kind of another unique take on it. So the fact that he's just like this weebles wobble, but he don't fall down, always dying, always kind of getting screwed over, but gotta persevere and go get the stuff. I'm not gonna describe the cave right now in too much detail because the cave is not available in solo mode. For the most part, the cave player is building the actual game board. He's putting out tiles. He puts them down face down, and then the players reveal them face up. Hopefully, the cave player is good enough to kind of set traps and isolate different people, and basically prolong the game in such a way that he can initiate the collapse and just bury everybody. But I'm not going to go into all that, like I said, because of solo mode, the cave is not there. What is available in solo mode are the other four characters. How the game kind of gets around the idea of having all the other characters interact is it basically just kind of introduces a card or a couple of cards, which change the meta up the game a little bit, and then just kind of sets a victory condition and does what you need to do. So in the solo game, you pick a character, you try to accomplish a goal. You smash a crystal if you're not a goblin. I didn't mention dragon crystals. There's like stuff around the area, and the knight is trying to smash the crystals, which is basically hurts the dragon. Without a dragon, you're just smashing the crystals. So then the goblin, you're also smashing the crystals. If you're a thief, you are stealing stuff. If you're a dragon, you're just trying to wake up. So you're trying to, maybe the card gives you an extra power or two. Maybe the card kind of changes kind of the way the cave operates and everything, but for the most part, you're really playing the game as just the regular character, and you're racing against the clock. You're trying to get in, do your thing before the cave collapses. I like the game. I like this game. It's super fun in multiplayer. So I've played it multiplayer and I've played it solo. Multiplayer, had a really, really great time. It took me a little while to get into it because this game is a bear to teach. It really is. because everybody's doing such different stuff. But it was really good. And, it's a really interesting take on the dungeon crawl, which I happen to love dungeon crawls. It's a little bit of an overdone genre, but I do, bring it on. And this game is does it really well. And you really feel like you're kind of diving in there and getting treasure and doing your thing. As a solo, the one thing I'll say in the positive thing is that it's a great way to learn the game. It keeps things really simple. Once you go through the game a couple times on solo as the knight, you really know the knight, which is important because that means you can teach the knight. If you're in a game store and there's 4 new players, you really want that solo experience in order to be able to teach the game and make it go smoothly, because if you can't really teach this game, then they're just going to be lost. So that's what the solo mode really kind of brings to the table. Unfortunately, that's all I can say about the solo game. It is kind of bad. I'm being nice. It's an awful solo game. It's easily the worst solo game that I've played this year. Because of the asymmetry. That's what makes the game great as a multiplayer, is what makes the game not good as a solo. Each character is 1/5 of the game. Take out the other 4/5, and you're left with 1/5 of a game. Imagine playing Sorry, but without 4 pieces, you get 1. It's like, yay, I'm in start, and I'm just pulling cards, and I'm waiting for that 1. Hooray. It's not a fair comparison because a lot of people don't like Sorry. I happen to like it. I play it with my family a lot. That's why it's on my mind. But imagine that experience of okay, you only get this 1/4 of a piece, this tiny chunk of a game, and you've taken the rest out and you replaced it with a card. You've replaced it with a couple of rules, and it's just not enough. I really wanted to like the solo. I really, really did. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm the type of person that likes to buy games, and I want to buy the game with 1 player. So if I'm on the fence about something and I see player count 2 to 5, I'm much more likely to buy it if the player count is 1 to 5. Because I know I can get that extra play out of it. And I was looking at Vast for that very reason. It's like I saw play count 1 to 5, and I'm like, yes, let's check it out. I thankfully did not buy the game. I had a friend kickstart it, and he lent me his copy. Thank you, Davey. You know who you are out there. And thank you for sparing me the money for paying for this game. I love it. It's a really good game. I'll play it multiplayer any day. As a solo, hard pass. Which breaks my heart to say that because it is such a good game. But, what makes it great is what makes it a terrible solo. Now we're at the last part that I wanted to talk about. This doesn't really have anything to do with the games. This isn't like a conversation that is built on top of the games, which is how we like to do the Table for One podcast. But it is the holidays. As solo gamers, I was kind of thinking about it. And a lot of solo gamers are introverts, like we were, of course. We wouldn't gravitate towards solo games if there wasn't some kind of pleasure in just being by ourselves and, doing what we need to do without having a whole bunch of stuff going on around us. I'm an introvert as well, so I guess that's part of why I gravitate towards a solo experience. Not to say that's everybody. There might be some beautiful social butterflies floating around here, but I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say a lot of introverts play these games. So I also happen to be a therapist. A psychotherapist, so I do counseling for a lot of people. That's my day job. And I've had a lot of conversations this very week, this being Thanksgiving week, about how do I get through the holidays? It's so much stress. I don't want to interact with family. Where's my Advance? Where's my pills? So besides all the medical stuff, my job is to kind of talk people through, give them tips and tricks, to get through this stuff, and I figured I'd kind of share some of the stuff that I've been talking about in my sessions here because it relates to the solo gamer. So I have 5. How to get through this busy holiday season as a introverted person. The first thing, and this is the most important thing, is to be easy on yourself. A lot of people think because they're uncomfortable around people or because they hate the pressure to feel social that there's something wrong with them. I'm screwed up. I'm bad. I hate my family. Why do I feel this way? It creates a lot of guilt. So I have a lot of clients that kind of express that. And my message to them is that being introverted doesn't mean you hate people. It really doesn't. It's just kind of a way that you interact with the world. you know? Being introverted really means that it just takes a lot of energy for you to socialize, or for us, because I'm an introverted person as well, like I said. So you don't really hate people. What you may hate is the fact that it's just so draining. You hate that you have to amp yourself up and find these sources of energy where other people might find it really natural to just be social. And that's okay. So a lot of people really beat themselves up about that. So my advice is to just realize that, and you could really go pretty far if you just kind of roll with that and say, you know what, I want to be social. I have this kind of energy problem. It takes me a lot of energy to be social. So now I have to just figure out, as opposed to resisting it, just figure out a way that you can be social within the limits that you have, energy-wise. So that leads me to my next goal, my next tip, which is pace yourself. Do the social thing, but make a tactical retreat every now and then. So let's say Thanksgiving is, this week. We're all going to interact with our friends. We're going to interact with our family. Let's go out there and, be social, do your thing, but then take a nice little retreat. Take a little 30 minutes to yourself. Find a little spot in the house, or if it's somebody else's house, just find a little way to just kind of, just isolate yourself. You might get fun of it. Maybe that causes a little bit of problem too. Oh, no, where are you? But you need it. An introverted really need that time. And this is where that solo game comes in there. I really think, and this is really dorky of me, I really think of the solo game as like the lembas bread. Getting the hobbits through Mordor, getting you through your Thanksgiving holiday. Oh my God, I just compared Thanksgiving holiday to Mordor. So, you're talking with your friends or talking with your family, then you have to make that retreat, and then you go play a quick game of Onirim, or you play Friday, or even just good old Klondike Solitaire, something that gets your hands busy, that you can really de-stress, take it down, build up that energy so that when you can really get back at it, that is far better than just staying out and grinding and feeling like that, that irritation or that frustration or something like that. So that solo game really is a key way that you can build that energy back up, so that, let's say you're at a place for 5 hours, 6 hours, you go 30 for 45 minutes, a maximum I recommend. Don't lay out Mage Knight, don't lay out Nations, don't lay out some giant solo. If you're going over 45 minutes, then that kind of creates a different purpose, which is not what you want. All you want to do is get that energy back up and get back out there and do your thing. My third tip is, when you're at this place, wherever you are, volunteer for a little job. It is much, much easier to get through a family gathering if you're in the kitchen chopping vegetables, or if you're making the snow castle for the kids outside. Anything that kind of keeps your hands busy or keeps your mind occupied, instead of being in that social hot zone, being in the living room with a bunch of people. You can really kind of get a lot of mileage. You can make your appearance. You can be, give people that good feeling that you're there, and you're able to even say, like, okay, can't talk too much right now. I'm chopping celery. So my fourth tip is, be willing to go to these places, but know your limits. If you have to leave after an hour, then leave. That's, you might get some smack talked about you for your family. Oh, he doesn't really love us. And no, that's not the case. And that's not the case. You're making a choice out of love. You're making a choice to say, you know what, I'd rather be here for an hour and leave than stay for 3 hours and be a giant grouch. Because that's what's going to happen. And, let people talk and let people make their assumptions about you. But for yourself that you need to do this out of love for yourself and love for other people, so that you don't inflict irritation and grouchiness on people. So, give it enough time, but definitely be aware of your limits. In that respect, this is kind of the fifth and final tip. Find an ally if you can. That ally can really make a big difference in explaining to people what's going on. Maybe they can just kind of put a cover for you. Oh, he's having a hard day. Oh, she's, just having a bad week. She didn't really feel well. They can really give you that cover. Whether you're there, whether you're have to leave or maybe even stay, and that person, that ally, is your conversation partner for the whole day. So like you're just kind of like, you know, in the corner talking for 3 hours. People might kind of feel badly about that, but at least you're there. And it's one person. That one ally might be really cool. Maybe you bring a solo game that is 2-player as well, and you have a little bit of time to play with them. Again, keep that short. You might want to keep that one a little bit shorter because you don't want to get into the trap of just playing 2-player games in the middle of a party all the time. But yes, that ally can be really, really important. Just to wrap up this conversation a little bit, the most important thing to remember is probably that first point. If you're an introverted person, it doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you hate your family. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It just means that you have to be smart and you have to be prepared. You have to mind your energy. I think that's one of the key words that I wanted to bring out of this was energy. You have to maintain it. If you feel it flagging, do something about it. Eat your quote-unquote lembas bread. Play that solo game. Isolate yourself for a half hour. Leave if you have to. Cover yourself with finding a job, but maintain that energy. Do whatever you can to do it, because once you get through it, you know, that stuff pays off. You know, at least you were there. At least you're part of the family. You're expressing love in the way that you know how to express love, which is really important. You know, that's what Thanksgiving is all about, is expressing that love, and you just find a way to do it smart. And do it prepared, and you can, like I said, you're giving your family something, and something is definitely better than nothing. So that's something better than nothing. That's going to be the big take home for this. So that's it. That's today's episode. For Anthony's sake, I'm going to give a couple of plugs. Please stop by iTunes or Google Play, rate and review the show. Please go to BoardGamersAnonymous.com. You can check out the BGA podcast and the YouTube channel. You can also check out the Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. You can also find Board Gamers Anonymous on Facebook and Twitter, and all the social media stuff. And that's probably the best way to get those guys is on Facebook and Twitter. They check that stuff a lot. Anthony will be back next week. Until then, we'll save you a seat at this table for one. Later, everybody.